Welcome to the Cheating Secrets channel. I hate Mondays, thought Sergeant Roland Martin as his cell phone rang in his pocket. He hadn't even had a chance to take a bite of the first of the 3 chocolate cake donuts he had bought during his first coffee break of the week when that damn phone rang. Seriously, did someone, for God's sake, die? As it turned out, someone had. There's a body at 1492, Sumner Avenue, Raleigh, Lieutenant Steve Gray said dryly. The dispatcher called a unit to check out an open front door, and when the patrolman went inside, he found a dead body. You might want to finish those donuts. I know you have them, because the guy was a rookie and it was his first corpse. He ended up making a mess all over the damn carpet right next to and down the hallway when he tried to run out the door to avoid contaminating the crime scene twice. Oh, and also on the porch, the kid made a bigger mess than the damn killer. Thanks for the warning, Lieutenant, Raleigh said with disgust. Leslie Bingham, who had been listening to the conversation, stuffed half of a Boston cream donut into her mouth. For the 1000th time, Raleigh noted how much his partner resembled his wife's younger sister. We're done here, and I wouldn't bother finishing the rest. Drop the pastries, and I'll grab the coffee. Meet me in the car, and I'll fill you in on the details. 2 patrol cars with their headlights on were parked outside the house when the 2 homicide detectives arrived. One of the 4 patrolmen was half sitting in the passenger seat of one of the cars, his face buried in a vomit bag. Tell that damn guy he'll owe me for dry cleaning if I get my clothes messed up with his puke, Raleigh said to the second patrolman standing nearby. Carefully stepping over a pile of vomit on the porch, Raleigh and Bingham cautiously entered the house and headed towards the bedroom where the body was found. Inside the bedroom, 2 more patrolmen were holding handkerchiefs to their noses to block out the stench coming from the vomit. The victim is Leonard McAllister, a 28-year-old unmarried artist who has lived in this house for about 2 years after moving here from Portland, Oregon. 1 shot to the back of the head. Looks like a .22 caliber, fired at close range, probably by someone the victim knew and trusted, reported the senior patrol officer at the scene, Sergeant Bill Ford, an experienced cop who knew his job, Raleigh thought. It doesn't look like anything was taken. His wallet was on the dresser, the TV is intact, and nothing seems to be missing. And now, if you don't mind, we're going to step outside for some fresh air. Call us if you need anything else. Raleigh nodded, and Bill Ford, along with the remaining officer, quickly stepped out the door. Bingham began photographing the crime scene while Raleigh wandered around the house. He was somewhat surprised to find 2 types of shampoo and 2 types of conditioner in the shower, 1 set for men and 1 for women. In fact, he absently noted that one of the shampoo and conditioner sets was the same brand his wife used. Definitely, a woman stayed here from time to time, he shouted to Bingham when, as a result of further searches, a woman's comb and a bottle of perfume were found in the bathroom cabinet. Probably an older woman, judging by the perfume. I'll buy this for Sandy, and the girl in the store told me that almost no one under 40 buys it. He removed some light-colored hairs from the brush and placed them in a plastic bag for DNA analysis. He put the brush in another bag so the lab could check for fingerprints. Raleigh had worked on this job for 22 years and was good at what he did. His instincts led him back to the bedroom, where he began checking various drawers in the closet. He noted that one of the drawers contained some women's underwear, and in the closet there were several pieces of women's clothing, enough for a few days of changing outfits. There was an ugly yellow tracksuit, resembling that hideous banana color his wife used to wear around the house before she finally got rid of it to end her husband's displeasure. Raleigh stood still for about a minute and realized he had stopped breathing when he looked at the tracksuit. He reached into the closet, took the suit off the hanger, and examined it carefully when Bingham interrupted his thoughts. Whoever she is, she doesn't have very good taste, Leslie remarked. Yeah, whoever came up with this should be punished, Raleigh quickly joked to hide his thoughts. Raleigh put the suit back in the closet, noticing that it was the same size his wife wore. He felt the hairs on his arms stand on end. Maybe you should step outside for a few minutes, Raleigh. You look as pale as a ghost, Bingham said. Yeah, good idea. I'll be back in 5 minutes. Carefully watching where he stepped, Raleigh walked out onto the street, his mind racing in 18 different directions at once. He was certain that what he had seen in the house was the end of his 27-year marriage, though he thought clearly enough to first check the fingerprints. He would take something of Sandy's from home and give it to the fingerprint specialists. He would do this before the end of his shift. 27 years gone in the blink of an eye, Raleigh thought to himself. Damn, he loved her. She obviously didn't love him, or if she did, it wasn't very devotedly. He felt a wave of nausea rising from the depths of his stomach. He bent over and vomited the remnants of last night's dinner onto the ground. I've never seen you do that before, Raleigh, but I don't blame you. That was pretty disgusting, Leslie said, approaching. Raleigh was embarrassed by the vomiting, even if it wasn't for the reason Bingham thought. He couldn't bring himself to tell her about it right now, even though they talked about almost everything that happened in their lives. As he had expected, Raleigh got the answer he didn't want before the end of his shift. He knew he had to recuse himself from the case and went to see his commander. I have a big problem, Lieutenant, Raleigh said as he entered the commander's office. It seems my dear wife has been cheating on me with the dead guy for quite some time, long enough for her to have some clothes and other belongings at his house. Gray's head snapped up from the papers he was reviewing as if on a spring, and he stared at his subordinate, mouth agape. Even though Raleigh had anticipated this reaction, he still blushed deeply. I compared the fingerprints on the comb I found at his house with those on some of Sandy's things from home. Bingo. She had clothes and other stuff there. Damn, I never had the slightest clue. I guess tonight I'll find out how long this crap has been going on. I'm sorry, Raleigh. Truly, Gray said. Do you think she killed the guy? The ballistics test might not be done until tomorrow. Bill Ford said he thinks it's a .22 caliber. Does Sandy have a .22? Damn, she does. I'll find it and bring it in later. If it turns out to be that .22, you guys can breathe a little easier, Raleigh said. Do I think she killed the guy? If you'd asked me yesterday, I would have said there's no way she could kill anyone, but I also would have said there's no way she could ever cheat on me. Obviously, I'm a complete idiot, boss. You know we have to bring her in for questioning. Do you want me to send a couple of uniformed officers to your house, or will you bring her in yourself? I think it would be better if I do it, boss. Although it might take me a little time, we need to talk about a few things, Raleigh said. Sandy was surprised when she pulled into the driveway and saw her husband's car already there. This was a rare occurrence and usually only happened if she was running late at her job as a real estate agent. She found her husband sitting at the kitchen table, drinking a cup of coffee. What a nice surprise. You're home early for a change, Sandy said as she walked through the kitchen. Let me put on a pair of sweatpants, and I'll start making dinner. Did you love him, Sandy? Did you love Leonard McAllister? Raleigh asked, his voice barely louder than a whisper. Sandy stopped dead in her tracks, her shoulders visibly tensing. She felt as though her husband had just struck her from behind. Her first instinct was to run, but her feet seemed glued to the floor. It took her a few seconds to turn and face Raleigh, though she couldn't bring herself to look him in the eye. She rasped, her soprano voice suddenly sounding like gravel. I guess I developed feelings for him. I'm sorry, Raleigh. Her eyes filled with tears as they met his gaze. She could see the terrible pain in the eyes of the man who had exchanged wedding vows with her 27 years ago. She walked over on shaky legs and sat down at the table next to her husband. How long has this crap been going on? He hissed. About 2 years. I showed him a few houses when he moved here, and we just kind of hit it off. It just happened, she replied. 2 damn years. It just happened, he repeated quietly. Like you were showing him a house. All your clothes fell off, and you tripped and landed on his damn tool? Because that's totally believable. The woman began to study the wooden surface of the table intently. Her husband had never spoken to her like this before. She wanted to cry, but she was suddenly afraid of how he might react. We would meet sometimes during the day, sometimes in the evening when you were working late. His schedule was pretty flexible, and you know most of my hours are flexible, she explained. His schedule isn't so flexible anymore, Sandy. He's in the morgue now with a bullet hole in the back of his head, and you're our #1 suspect. Raleigh had to reach out and grab his wife's hand to keep her from falling off the chair onto the floor when her eyes rolled back and she lost consciousness. He lifted her from the chair and carried her to the sofa in the living room. Sandy came to, sobbing, while Raleigh stood nearby. He noted that the fainting seemed real enough, but so did her act of being a loving wife for the past 2 years while she was sleeping with another man. You know I didn't kill him. You know I couldn't do something like that. Don't you, Raleigh? She pleaded. Until this morning, I would have agreed. But if you could cheat on me with another man for 2 years, I think you were capable of much more, a lot more, he replied. Right now, I don't trust you at all. The tears flowed even harder. Raleigh snorted, growing angrier by the minute. He had so many questions, he almost didn't know where to begin. When was the last time you saw that jerk, Sandy? He growled. Are you going to interrogate me as a suspect? In our own home? She squeaked uncertainly. At this point, yes. Because I'm not going to look like a completely clueless fool when we get to the station. Now answer my damn question, you wretch. She recoiled again at his harsh words. We were together Friday night while you were at work. But he was very much alive when I left around 11. Why would I kill him? Why did you cheat? She winced but didn't answer. As the seconds ticked by, Raleigh realized she probably thought it was more of a rhetorical question. No, I'm serious, San. Why did you cheat? I'm not entirely sure why, Raleigh. The kids were gone. You were working crazy hours. I started to feel like I was getting old. One day, he came to the office looking for real estate. He was handsome and charming, and he started flirting. I should have put an end to it, but maybe I was so flattered that a man only slightly older than our children wanted me. We had several lunches and dinners and also looked at houses, and when we found the house that suited him, we celebrated in the bedroom. Deep down, I knew it was wrong, but somehow it felt so right. It was almost as if it was separate from you and me, and in a way, it stayed that way. And he was a young guy, so most of the time we could do it twice every time we got together for a few hours. Enough. Where's your .22 caliber, baby? He asked hoarsely. It's where I always keep it, on the top shelf of my closet, under a couple of scarves. You know that, she rasped. Sit down. I'll get it, Raleigh said, getting to his feet. He returned a minute later with the gun, wrapped in a plastic bag. She looked surprised. What are you? She began before he interrupted. This gun was fired recently. What the hell? He shouted. Her mouth opened, but she couldn't speak. Get in the car, Sandy. It's time to go. Call Bob Leacher on the way there. Sandy sat in the passenger seat while Raleigh drove to the police station. She could feel the waves of anger radiating from him. You have clothes and toiletries at his place. Raleigh hissed about 10 minutes into the silence. Were you planning to leave me for him? Damn it, you decorated his kitchen and living room just like ours. I never really thought about that. Honestly, she said quietly. The rest of the drive was silent. When Raleigh turned off the engine, he looked at his wife again. One more thing I need to know, baby. Were there others? She couldn't utter a word, but she shook her head. Raleigh led his wife to the commander, then walked away. Wait, where are you going, Raleigh? She asked. He's now removed from the case, Sandy. You're a suspect, so he can't be involved, said Lieutenant Gray. But you know me, Steve. You know I'm not a killer, she pleaded with her husband's boss, who was also an old friend. I'm sorry, Sandy. Call your lawyer right now. Then Detectives Paulson and Zambrano will take you in for questioning. They won't ask you anything until your lawyer arrives, Gray said. Raleigh accounted for his time over the entire weekend, including a few hours on Sunday afternoon when he was watching baseball with Gray and 2 other officers at Gray's house. At that time, Sandy was showing a house out of town. The detectives questioning Sandy soon discovered that her last statement was false. Sandy had waited for 2 hours for the people who had scheduled the viewing to arrive, but all she got was 2 hours of reading the Sunday newspaper in her car, sipping coffee. By the time she returned home, Raleigh was at Gray's house watching baseball, so she couldn't account for about 4 hours. So, you don't have an alibi for Sunday, Zambrano said. Did you at least mention this to your husband? She looked indignant, but shook her head. Unfortunately for Sandy, the quick work in the lab worked against her. The bullet retrieved from the victim matched Sandy's gun exactly, and it was determined that Leonard died on Sunday afternoon, precisely during the time when she had no alibi. By noon on Tuesday, she had gone from simply being held in custody to being arrested. Raleigh's life went from good to terrible in less than 48 hours. Although he didn't want to do it, he decided that he needed to tell his children what had happened. Both seemed upset that their mother had cheated on him, but neither believed that she could actually kill her lover. They were also disturbed that Raleigh wasn't 100% convinced that she wasn't a murderer. "Dad, it's Mom. You know better than anyone that she couldn't kill someone," said the elder, 24-year-old Jack. "Don't be petty, Dad," his 21-year-old daughter Ellie, a graduate of Ohio State University, scolded him. "Sure, it's awful that she cheated on you, but you can't really think Mom could kill someone." Raleigh felt betrayed by his children's casual attitude toward their mother's 2-year affair. Raleigh knew that legally he couldn't prevent his wife from returning to their home after she posted bail, but while she was in jail, he moved all her clothes to the guest room. He briefly considered moving to the guest room himself, but decided to stay in his own bed and make his cheating wife sleep elsewhere. "You're the one who had an affair, so I'm staying in my bed," he said irritably when she began to argue with his decision. The couple lived separately in the same house, barely speaking and not sharing meals. Sandy's attempts to apologize were largely ignored. "I'm sorry for everything, Raleigh. Really, I still love you. I still have feelings for you," Sandy said one day. "You're only sorry that I found out," Raleigh replied. "You slept with him for 2 years. You deceived me and lied to me for 2 years. For God's sake, you fell in love with this guy. How can you possibly care about me? Feel sorry for hurting me? Maybe I was an ignorant, gullible fool, but I've pulled my head out of the sand. You can't do what you did to me and still tell me you have feelings for me. Maybe pity at best. I have no idea if you killed him, but you certainly killed me, you adulteress." At Sandy's request, the children came home for a couple of weeks. They were shocked by their father's cold treatment of their mother. "Dad, Mom is going to be tried for murder, and all you can think about is that she cheated on you," Ellie said sharply. "I think you should put the affair aside until the trial is over, and then worry about your marriage. She might end up in prison for a long time, Dad." "Doesn't it bother any of you that the guy she cheated with is the one who got killed? I can't just ignore that. She cheated on me for 2 years, kept clothes at his place, and she loved him. And it really looks like she killed him. A lover's quarrel? I don't know, but her problem with him is also her problem with me. Am I supposed to blindly support her after she's had an affair for the past 2 years? Damn, if he hadn't been killed, she probably would have left me for him eventually. And we're not even talking about the cost of a murder trial. At least that will reduce the amount I'll have to split with her in the divorce. The cost of a lawyer. God, Dad, who knew you were such a selfish pig?" Jack yelled at him. "It's not about the money. It's about everything. The betrayal, the lies, the deceit, her sex. The fact that she slept with another man for 2 years because he said sweet things to her when she felt old and vulnerable. My words didn't mean a damn thing to her, but this young bastard talks nicely to her, and she sleeps with him for 2 damn years. God," Raleigh said. A few days later, things kept getting worse for Sandy. Paulson and Zambrano discovered that Leonard had apparently taken on 2 more lovers after he started seeing Sandy. This gave her a strong motive for murder, though both detectives had to admit that she seemed devastated when they told her about their findings. He wouldn't have done that to me," she murmured quietly in response, her eyes filling with tears. "He loved me. He told me that many times. I told him I loved him." Raleigh sank into despair when he heard her reaction to this latest news. Paulson said to Raleigh, "This guy must have been really good, really smooth. It was almost like he had 3 separate lives. None of the women knew about the others. He started having sex with Sandy about 2 years ago, added 25-year-old Kara Carter about 14 months ago, and 32-year-old Donna Fisher about 8 months ago. They're both pretty little things too. Sorry about that, Raleigh." Raleigh knew that Paulson and Zambrano were good detectives, probably the best in the department after him and Leslie. He knew that if there were any evidence to be found, Paulson and Zambrano would find it, which they did the next day. After conducting a more thorough canvassing of the neighborhood, they spoke with a nosy resident and got additional information. Helen Abernathy told the detectives that over the past 2 years, she had seen Leonard's girlfriend at his house dozens of times. She was of average height, with shoulder-length blonde hair, a seductive figure, and was pretty, as far as Helen could tell from 3 doors down. The last time Helen saw her at Leonard's house was on Sunday afternoon, right after lunch. The 2 detectives knew Raleigh's wife. Helen Abernathy's description of Leonard's girlfriend matched her perfectly. The new information was that she had been at his house on Sunday afternoon, which coincided with the time of the murder. Although Raleigh was suspended and not involved in the investigation, Gray included him in Paulson and Zambrano's briefings out of courtesy. Raleigh sat almost frozen as the pair recounted what Helen Abernathy had told them. "Damn," he whispered when they finished their report. "She had motive, means, and opportunity." The other 3 men in the room quietly nodded in agreement. "Even though I had doubts about whether she was really capable of killing someone, this looks really bad, gentlemen," he said. During another interrogation, Sandy again denied seeing Leonard on Sunday afternoon. "I told you I was waiting for clients for a showing. They never showed up. I sat in my car and read for 2 hours before leaving," she insisted angrily. "Then how is it that one of Mr. Leonard's neighbors saw you at his house on Sunday afternoon, shortly after noon?" "She's mistaken. I wasn't there. She knows exactly what you look like, having seen you over the last 2 years. She picked your photo out of a lineup," Zambrano said. No, no. This can't be happening," Sandy shrieked. Sandy was terrified when she returned home. Her lawyer had explained to her what a murder conviction would mean, and unless the police suddenly found something that pointed to someone else. "Seriously, Raleigh, I didn't kill that two-faced jerk," she wailed. "I didn't know he was cheating on me. You know I couldn't kill." She suddenly stopped ranting, realizing that she had been doing the same thing recently. It was obvious that Raleigh no longer trusted her. She understood that she no longer deserved his trust. Raleigh didn't miss the fact that her assessment of Leonard had shifted from love to something much less when she learned that she was just one of several lovers the artist had. Love can be so fleeting, he thought to himself. Raleigh and Sandy had been living like strangers for several months, cooking their own meals, doing their own laundry, and rarely communicating. Even when the children visited, Raleigh mostly kept to himself. It didn't take a genius to realize that Raleigh's relationship with his children had deteriorated almost to the breaking point, as they continued to insist that he needed to accept their mother's infidelity and unconditionally support her during the trial. "I hope neither of you ever has to experience this kind of heartbreak," Raleigh told the children during one argument. "I gave her everything for 27 years. At some point, my love wasn't enough for her, and she found someone else, but apparently couldn't figure out how to tell me or get rid of me." The wheels of justice turned slowly, and it was about 9 months before Sandy's murder trial began. But it took only 5 days for the jury to return a guilty verdict. Sandy sobbed uncontrollably in the courtroom. Several rows behind her, Raleigh sat impassively. It had been a lifetime since they both said "I do" in a small church in front of about 100 people. What went wrong? He thought to himself. "I thought we'd grow old together, rocking our grandchildren, maybe even great-grandchildren, on our knees. Did I ever really know her?" Sandy was the sweetest girl he had ever noticed when, one Saturday after a night of heavy drinking in his senior year of college, he spotted her in the Greasy Spoon Taco Diner. It was the kind of place you'd go to shake off a brutal hangover the next morning. She had long blonde hair, and her tight jeans really accentuated her figure. Given that his vision was a bit blurry from all the alcohol, he knew he needed to get closer to see if she was as beautiful as he thought. "Wow, you're really gorgeous," Raleigh said, boldly eyeing the woman from head to toe. "Excuse me?" Sandy Nesbitt said, turning to face the obviously intoxicated young man. The 3 other women with her also turned toward the man, but none of them looked very happy. "Oh, damn. Did I say that out loud?" the young man asked with a sheepish, drunken grin. The girl to the right of the goddess stepped forward and raised her hand threateningly. "How about you leave before I kick you so hard in one place that all your kids will be disabled?" She snapped at him. "Because I told the truth about your friend." "Oh, wait. She's your girlfriend." "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend you," Raleigh said, swaying. "What? No, she's not my girlfriend, but she is my friend. and you're just being a rude drunk. Now get out of here." One of the guys who had come with Raleigh approached at that moment, having heard the exchange. "I'm sorry. Is Raleigh bothering you?" "Whatever he said, he regrets it. He's had a bit more to drink than usual," the friend said. "Wait a minute. I'm not that drunk," Raleigh insisted. "But she is really beautiful." Raleigh pointed at the blonde. His friend looked at her, then nodded in agreement. "Yes, she is, but it's time for us to go," he said. "I'll go, but I need to get your phone number," Raleigh said to the blonde. The blonde woman studied the young man. He was over 6 feet tall, appeared fit and handsome, with bright blue eyes. She hesitated for a moment, then told Raleigh to extend his hand. She took a pen from her purse and wrote her phone number on his palm. "I'm never going to wash this hand again," he mumbled. "Well, at least not until you call her first," his friend added. Sandy wasn't sure if Raleigh would even remember talking to her, so she was a bit surprised when he called her the next day. Although he hadn't made much of an impression on her the previous night, she remembered that he seemed infatuated with her in his drunken state. The night before, she had admitted to her friends that she found him attractive, and honestly, what girl can resist a cute guy who's willing to make a fool of himself to impress her? She agreed to go on a date the following Friday night. They became intimate on their 4th date. They got married about a year later. Like any couple, they had their ups and downs, but Raleigh never suspected that his wife was unhappy with him or their marriage. He wouldn't have been happy if she had said she wanted a divorce, but at least it wouldn't have been betrayal, and she wouldn't have had to cheat on him for 2 years, Raleigh thought. Still, he knew Sandy better than anyone in the world, and deep down, he had a nagging doubt that this woman could have killed someone. However, his doubts didn't matter. The evidence pointed to Sandy. After what she had done to him over the past 2 years, he decided that he wouldn't lose a minute of sleep worrying about what might happen to her. As far as Leonard was concerned, karma did exist, he smirked to himself. Raleigh was reinstated to field duty after his wife's trial, and he and Leslie were partnered again. About a year later, they were sitting in a diner during their lunch break. Raleigh watched Leslie nibble on a bun and, for the 1000th time, noticed how much she resembled the woman who had become his ex-wife 4 months ago. "Why did you kill him, Les?" Raleigh said, slightly louder than a whisper. Leslie didn't miss a beat in her chewing. She had figured it was only a matter of time before Raleigh would figure it out, and she wouldn't disrespect him by pretending to be clueless. "I was only going to hurt him a little, but then he started talking and saying all kinds of crap about you. I gave him a chance to take a shot at you verbally, so I took the second shot, literally." Raleigh decided they needed to finish this conversation in the privacy of his car. He waited about 30 seconds before Leslie began, her voice slightly trembling. "I found out that Sandy was cheating on you about 2 months before I broke up with him," Leslie said. "I was debating whether or not to tell you. I knew it wouldn't be good for you or for him. So, I finally decided to confront that bastard myself. I was just going to try to scare him into ending it with her, but he didn't take the hint. Then he started mocking you. He said that he and Sandy laughed all the time about her idiot husband. He said he wasn't afraid of you and had no intention of stopping, so I shot him. Just like that. I used the spare key to your house that you gave me years ago to get Sandy's gun for the hiding spot you told me about. I really didn't plan on killing that jerk, but I wasn't going to use my own gun if it came to that. So, was it you or someone you know who arranged the Sunday house showing for Sandy that fell through?" Raleigh asked. She nodded and gave him a sideways smile. "Can I tell you something else?" Leslie asked. It was Raleigh's turn to nod. "I love you, Raleigh. I have for several years, but I never intended to act on it until your foolish wife messed up. Now, well, I'd like to be considered a candidate for the open spot in your bed and your heart," she said. Raleigh looked surprised. "You know, for a smart guy, you're really oblivious, Raleigh." They both sat silently in the car for about a minute. "What now, Raleigh? Are you going to take me into custody, or should I turn myself into the police?" Raleigh paused. "So, let me see if I got the facts straight," he finally said. "The man who seduced my wife is dead. My ex-wife, the cheater, is in prison for life, and the woman who loves me is sitting in the seat next to me. I'm satisfied with how things are. Let's just keep this between you and me." Leslie beamed at Raleigh. He smiled back at her, started the car, and they drove off. Thank you for listening until the end. See you in the next episode of Cheating Secrets. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Goodbye.